Hey folks, Poverty Point Customs here. Well, what we're going to do today is an oil change on the engine in this AGT Industrial excavator, as well as we're going to make sure it's all greased. So on this, there's two types of grease fittings. So what you're going to need is your standard grease gun fitting. As well, in the toolbox, it comes with this other grease fitting. And that's what you're going to need for a lot of the grease fittings on this. And then there's also a lot of the standard grease fittings, as you can see here on the boom. And as you can see, these are one of these plug grease fittings. You insert it like that and put in your grease. These actually work really good. I'm quite impressed with those. So we're going to go over all the grease fittings locations. So you're going to have it here. You're going to have one right here at the bottom of your hydraulic cylinder, one at the top. You're going to have one for your cylinder for your blade here, as well as here. You're going to have a standard grease fitting there and there for your blade pivot. On your top cylinder, there's one right there, as well as right there. Here, here, and here. Your front cylinder here and here. And I don't see any grease fittings on your hydraulic thumb. There's going to be one here on your swing boom right there. As well, you're going to have two grease fittings here. So this is going to put grease underneath, up in there, where your house actually pivots on the base of your excavator. And there's going to be one right in there. So really, any pivot point is or should have a grease fitting, as well as all your hydraulic cylinders are going to have one on each end. One thing I recommend, and this is my third excavator, you always want to check your hydraulic connections. I've had a couple loose ones on my last one, so make sure these are all nice and tight. So you're going to have two connections on each hydraulic cylinder. Alright, so once those are all greased, and again, you're going to want to do this every hour or two, or every time you use your excavator. Certainly grease is cheap. It's a lot cheaper than replacing a lot of these joints. So what we're going to do next is change the engine oil. You can access it through the rear door here. And right down there, there's your fill location, as well as your drain location. Is really hard to see, but it's right there. So with this model, there's barely any room to actually get in there and get a wrench on that drain bolt. So what I'm actually going to do is use my fluid transfer pump. We're going to use this to suck out the old oil, and we're going to determine how much came out, and then we're going to put the appropriate amount back in to the fill location using the fluid transfer pump. And I'm going to be using Mobil 1 10W30. First things first, you want to let it run for a couple minutes to get the engine and the oil warmed up. So I had the engine running for about 5 minutes, so it's nice and warm. So what we're going to do is remove the fill location, the orange cover right there. So I have the cover removed. So what I'm going to use is my fluid transfer pump. So I'm actually going to hook this up to the existing connections right in the excavator. So there's the battery right beside the engine. And there we go. We can see that it's all hooked up there. So one end of the tube is going to go into your drain pan. We're going to use a measuring cup. And the other end is going to go right in that hole, and we're going to suck out the oil. And it's going to look just like that. Again, the reason I'm doing this is because really can't access that bolt to drain the oil right from there. So what I would recommend, if you're doing it this way, put your new oil in, run it for an hour or two, and then flush it again, and that way you know you have 100% of the old oil out of the system, because really we don't know what type of oil the manufacturer's using when they're making these and shipping them. So I'm pretty confident we probably have 90% or more of the old oil out of this. That literally took about a minute, and that almost took out approximately 1 full liter there. And you can see the color of that oil, and this has 0.4 hours on it. So we don't really know actually what type of oil that is. That is some thick and gross and gray. So what I'm going to do is dump this out, and then we're going to put the proper amount of oil in here, and then we're actually going to reverse this. And we're going to put the fresh oil back into the engine. Alright, so we're going to put the fresh oil in. So what I'm actually doing is the reverse. So the tube that I'd be sucking the oil out with is actually going in to the fill location. And the other end is going into my fresh oil. So this is the amount of oil that I took out. So we're going to turn on the pump, and we're going to run it through into here. And there is no real dipstick on here, but the fill location is actually to the top of the thread. So when you see the oil get to the top of the threads in there, you know that it's full. And it's roughly 1.1 liters, give or take. Alright, so the oil's right about halfway up the threads there, so that is filled up. So I removed the fill plug, or the hose, so you can reinstall the fill cover. So we got the fill cap all reinstalled. Just want to note, there is no oil filter on this. Alright, so we're going to start it up and let it run for a couple minutes, and then we'll check the oil again. And there you go. That's how easy it is to change the oil in this. Again, it literally takes a couple minutes to do. Well, we're talking about oil too. Inside the cap, underneath this cover, is your hydraulic oil location. Right there, you take off that top. That's where your hydraulic fluid is. On the outside, this is the level of your hydraulic fluid. A lot of people say when you get these Chinese excavators is to change your hydraulic fluid right away. What I would do is run it for an hour or two and then change it out. I'd be using an AW32 or AW46 hydraulic fluid. It's relatively cheap to buy, and what I would do is actually suck it out right through there is the easiest way, using a fluid extractor pump, the same as what I use to get the oil out of here. So run this, get the hydraulic fluid warm, remove that cover, and remove the hydraulic fluid. And it's just under 20 liters of hydraulic fluid. And top it up with the proper type. Again, probably using an AW46 for the summer, AW32 rating for the winter. And before I would remove the hydraulic fluid, I would just make sure all your cylinders are in the closed position. There's less fluid in your cylinders when they're closed, so you'd want to make sure they're nice and closed before you remove the hydraulic fluid. Again, you're still going to have some in the lines, so if you remove your hydraulic fluid, put new fluid in, when you do it again down the road, you're going to get most of the fluid out of the lines. It's eventually going to flush itself out. Now, some people say there is a little strainer at the bottom. What I would do is drain all the fluid. If you can get anything in there, if there's any little metal pieces or whatnot in the bottom of your hydraulic tank, I would try to clean that out before you do put your new fluid in. And again, this was just a short video on how to change the engine oil, as well as all the grease points on your boom and stick, as well as for your house. Right there, don't forget those ones. Those take a lot of grease. The next video, we're going to go over all the different functions and how to use them in the excavator. So like always, if you have any questions, comments, make sure you post below. If you're not a subscriber, you may want to consider subscribing. Like always, thank you for watching.